This message comes from NPR sponsor Discover. Discover will automatically double all the cash back you've earned on your credit card at the end of your first year with Cash Back Match. It pays to Discover. See terms at discover.com/credit card.
Hello, hello. I'm Brittany Luce, and you're listening to It's Been a Minute from NPR, a show about what's going on in culture and why it doesn't happen by accident. This week, we're talking about one of the hottest tickets in New York City right now, a revival of Andrew Lloyd Webber's hit musical, Cats.
Cats, the 7-time Tony Award winner, the once-in-a-lifetime experience, the most exciting family...
But Cats, the Jellicle Ball, doesn't look like the musical fever dream of the 80s and 90s. It's been reimagined through the lens of the ballroom scene. The actors are no longer cats doing ballet and leotards and full faces of cat makeup, but people in the ballroom subculture who compete for trophies in different categories, like runway, face, or Vogue performance. Categories that gained global attention in the documentary Paris is Burning in 1990.
Can we have anti-extravaganza?
In this revival, no lyrics have been changed, and it works surprisingly well, even if the people still have names like Grizabella, Mungo Jerry, and Jenny Annie Dots. And I hear you. It sounds like a hard pitch to pair with an Andrew Lloyd Webber musical, but one viral clip hushed a lot of the naysayers right in their tracks. The cast was catwalking in formation, staring the camera down, posing and almost daring you to come and see what they were cooking up.
No one had done anything like this with the material before. And so there just wasn't really a precedent for how anyone would respond to a different Cats and if they would understand what we were trying to do with mixing the cultures.
I really didn't know what to expect. And then when I start seeing this buzz and, and everybody's trying to replicate that performance, just that little piece, I'm like, okay.
That's Jalen Livingston, the co-director of Cats, and Chastity Moore, who stars as Grizabella the Glamour Cat. Today, we're talking to them about bringing Ballroom to the Jellicle Ball and the surprising overlap between them, from elder reverence to spectacle. Chastity, Jalen, welcome to It's Been a Minute.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It's been a minute.
It has been a minute. Oh my gosh. I'm happy to have you both here today. We all know the story of Cats, which follows a tribe of cats who spend the musical hashing out which of them is going to go on to a better life in what is called in the show the heavy side layer. It's like a vague metaphor for heaven or the next lifetime. And one of the most notable things about the revival is that it interprets the story through the ballroom subculture, which was born out of the drag ball scene in New York. Chastity, you initially were worried about the ballroom being brought into, the Broadway context in that it could be another example of cultural appropriation. What was the connection that you saw there that made you go, okay, this is going to work?
Coming to the first workshop and seeing these geniuses at work piecing it together made me start feeling like I see how this can work out. And the correlation of someone leaving community and coming back to community and not feeling accepted, and no words had to be changed for this to fit the way it does with the ballroom.
Right.
It's crazy how it goes so well.
Yes, it's something I never would have put together. Our producer, Corey Antonio, he's like, I was waiting for somebody to do this. He saw it. I'll give him his credit as a longtime Cats fan and also as somebody in the ballroom community. But I never would have thought the two of them went together. But like you said, not a single word had to be changed. Chastity, some of the themes that you're talking about, like being, cast out of community and then coming back into community, we see that play out through your character, Grizabella. And if those of you who may not remember the show Cats, Grizabella is the one cat with the show-stopping song Memory. Grisabella is like a formerly glamorous but now disgraced legendary cat who returns to the tribe with that iconic song, Memory. What about the role of Grisabella felt like a fit for you?
Well, I feel like with this role that I'm standing on the ancestors' shoulders of the trans girls from community who didn't have a voice before, it wasn't necessarily that we were cast out of the scene, but back then a lot of the girls were living stealth and they wanted to go into the world. And so they really didn't want to associate with ballroom. That's where the name
Mm,
Temperance and Chastity are two different things. I never wanted people to know me as Temperance in the world because
mm,
Temperance was my ballroom name. And back in those days, I was living stealth. And so a lot of the girls tried to live in society and didn't really work out. And then sometimes you just fall on these hard times and then you come back to
mhm,
community, and within ballroom sometimes you're as good as the last ball that you walked. And when you
mm,
come back and you're not looking like the girl that you was when you left, sometimes your reception is not like it should be, and you're feeling like, I'm this icon, I put all this time in this community, and I'm coming back and these people are not remembering my history, and now they're
mm,
not giving me that life that they used to. And so for that, I was like, this character can really speak to those girls who I see now sometimes on the street, who are just living lives and no one has no idea where they are or anything
mm.
about them because they really don't care anymore because they're no longer walking balls.
That's something that we see kind of play out in the show with Grisabella's character. When you first come on stage, the reaction that she gets from the other cats is very telling. It's almost like they don't really recognize her anymore. As you mentioned, she's not looking like
Hmm.
her old self, and it's like they don't know what to do with that. I thought that was a really interesting theme that even for me as somebody who's outside of the community, being able to see it through the show, it really struck a meaningful chord. Jalen, what ideas got you excited to translate the world of ballroom through the musical Cats?
Yeah, I just immediately felt it could work. Ballroom elevates the material.
I agree.
So it doesn't change the material, but it does what the best theater, the best literature, the best poetry does, which is make you go to the material and ask the question, what else might this be? And what we learned is that ballroom is as robust and malleable and
Mm,
legitimate art form as any art form. And that what we're showing, I think, is that it deserves to be in the same conversation as every classical text. With this production, we present a way in which something that has been a subculture can meet the mainstream in a way that only strengthens and validates its authentic origins.
hmm, hmm, hmm. That makes me think about a trend that we've seen on Broadway and in theater for the past few years, maybe 5, 10 years. A lot of reboots and shows and plays and musicals based on previous IP. Obviously, some audiences are loving it, but there are also some critics who are not. I imagine that you must have had that in mind as you were working on the Jellicle Ball. Jalen, how did you work to set this revival apart from the current Broadway trend of, the Back to the Futures and the Notebooks and the Outsiders and so on and so forth?
Yeah, there's a difference between a remake and a reboot and a remix.
Mm,
And then there's a revival, which I think takes into consideration all of the context around a piece. How do you revive the moment, right? And what I was trying to do is really investigate and figure out what was it about Cats that made it a cultural phenomenon, not just what made it work. But this is a show that ran on Broadway for 18 years that still
yes.
has shows that are, internationally toured. What was going on? Yeah.
What did you discover that made it a phenomenon?
I'll try not to be too nerdy in response to spare your listeners, but, Cats is coming out of a musical theater period that is known as like the British invasion, and nothing like it had happened before. The idea of actors coming out through the audience and messing with you, that had never happened before. The idea,
Right, because
and
the cats would come out and touch the
yeah.
audience members and stuff like that.
So in many
Crazy.
ways, Andrew Lloyd Webber pioneered the immersive musical as it relates to commercial theater. And so, the spectacle of the set, the spectacle of the lights, the spectacle of the big tire that ascends to the sky. This is all the first time this is happening. The level of spectacle and wow was just so brand new. And so in a way, when I would be in these creative conversations, I would say we can't just adapt the literal material, we also have to kind of adapt what that material meant in the world. And I think a lot of times that ends up meaning just paring the show down and showing, hey, look, these stories can be told with a broom and a mop too. And I think what I was interested in is not necessarily paring it down in terms of production scale, but actually revealing another kind of spectacle. If you take the literal cats away, what spectacle is there? That's the human body. How do you make a spectacle of humanity?
As y'all were preparing to put this show together, you had cast members coming from the ballroom scene, you had cast members coming from Broadway, and some who were trained in both. I'm told that how you prepare for a ball is very differently structured from how you prepare for a musical production. What was it like to have ballroom icons and Broadway icons in the same room together, collaborating to build this show?
Complicated, hard,
okay.
rigorous.
Shayla, you say complicated, and Chastity, you start laughing.
It's not a magic trick, just because the ideas came together in a kind of inevitable way. Those ideas have to be put on bodies. And I think what was fascinating was to watch folks from Ballroom be like, here are my capacities that I need built. Maybe I don't read sheet music. Maybe I've never done this exact thing before, but I'm not going to be the one who is seen as not able to do this. And so that produces a kind of energy and a kind of spirit that actually is quite aligned with Ballroom. And so the musical theater people at a certain point in the process were like, I'm going to fall into this process in a way that makes the audience hope or at least think that this tribe is all one tribe.
Chastity, this revival blends Grisabella's backstory with some of your own experience in the ballroom scene. We see some incredible clips of you back in the day as an example of Grisabella in her prime. And, for those who don't know, you came up in the houses of Chanel and Mugler, and you are the founding queen mother of the royal house of Maison Margiela. And I want to know, how did it feel to get specific about the story of this character using your own memories and archival footage? I mean, your own archival footage actually played during the performance.
It was interesting when I sat down because I hadn't seen the clips until one day in rehearsal.
Oh my gosh.
And so I'm sitting there and I'm watching it, and then I started seeing me and I got emotional. Like, it was
right, because there's all these other performers and all these other legends and icons. And then they get to your video. I mean, you obviously are a legend and an icon, but that must have been, it caught you. Did it catch you off guard?
It did catch me off guard. It did, because although there's generations that look at me as the icon and, all these things, when I'm in the room with someone like Junior.
Right, Junior LaBeija, he's a ballroom pioneer.
I become like that little girl again. Like, I fangirl because these were people that I seen that came before me. So I had this admiration for them. And so looking back on my own history, it was like, okay, wow. Like, it just really put me in an emotional place.
But, it's interesting. I mean, like when you describe it like that, it makes me think about that phrase, receiving your flowers. I mean, you're getting your flowers every night in this performance. I wonder, is there memory from your time as house mother that looking back, you realize prepared you for this role?
I mean, I think that there's so many things that prepared me for this role. There's so many things that memory means to me. Honestly, like in my audition, remember I broke out crying at the end of the song, and it was because it had touched me so much, and that I really was living in the moment of Grisabella. There were so many things. It was like me coming back around to something that I hadn't done in over 20-something years. I hadn't been on stage in like 20-something years, and it was something I've been wanting to do for so long. I didn't know if I would ever get that opportunity again. And for me to even just be in that room in that audition, like all those things was hitting me. There was things that I was manifesting. And then also living in a world like in society years ago, it was like we weren't humans to people, or just because of my mere existence, people did not like me. And so when I'm like, touch me and you'll know what happiness is, because I'm happy in my transition. Why are you so not happy because of what I chose to do in life? So with this character, I wanted to show that. And then I may not have gone down such a dark path as Grisabella, but I have been in a dark place where I couldn't even show it in front of anybody because I was temperous. And I had to walk and be like, yes, I'm living this life, but I was transitioning out of things that no longer served my life anymore. And I wanted a life that I could be proud of. That's why the character just resonates with me so much.
I wonder, in what ways does that song, Memory, and the way that you perform it, in what ways does it hit harder, do you think, in the context of this show?
I mean, thank God he has reserved me a little, but I am older, so the memory is fading and stuff. So I had to really get into the lyrics, and it was really looking back onto how I may have felt when I first started walking balls versus how coming back, and maybe, they used to go crazy when I would hit the floor when I was younger. And now it may be 75% of that. So it's like, I am getting older, and I'm not as young as the younger girls, and ageism is a big thing in communities.
Yeah, that was something that definitely felt like a theme that I noticed through the show. It made me curious about how this kind of plays out in real life. I mean, as Ballroom experiences this latest wave of mainstream visibility, a lot of the faces that are most widely associated with the culture tend to be younger, while some of the architects of the scene, may not get some of the same attention or opportunities.
Even with the pictures that's featured in the show when the memory is going on, there was a generation that it was perfect, like the older, but then it skipped to like all these newer kids. And I was like, okay, wait, hold on. And so I had to make sure that we did get those people in there that have been holding Ballroom down for the last 20 years. And if you don't know your history, it is erased. And those people tend to get erased.
Yeah, I mean, Chastity talks about it all the time and is not the only one who has brought up just how in this ballroom context, it's actually more egregious to not remember or to not understand someone's place in the lineage than it is to just be done with someone.
Chastity, Jalen, it has been such a pleasure speaking to you both today about Cats. I really enjoyed the show, and talking to you has really enriched my understanding of it. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brittany.
That was Cats co-director Jalen Livingston and star Chastity Moore. You can catch Cats, the Jellicle Ball, at the Perlman Arts Center in New York City until August 11th.
Support for this NPR podcast and the following message come from Carvana, the convenient way to buy a car online. Carvana has finance options, so you can customize your terms down to the penny or explore different down and monthly payment options. Get pre-qualified for an auto loan in under 2 minutes at Carvana.com.
On Wait, we ask very well-known people about things that people don't know about them, like what was Malala Yousafzai doing when she heard she'd won the Nobel Peace Prize?
I went to my physics class. I said I have to finish my school day because when you get the Nobel Peace Prize for education, you have to finish your school day.
I'm Peter Sagal. For the real secrets of the rich and famous, listen to the Wait, Don't Tell Me podcast from NPR.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Synchrony Bank, empowering you to tackle your savings goals with flexible access to your money and no monthly fees or minimums. It's never been easier to take control of your financial future. Go to synchronybank.com/NPR. Member FDIC.
Hey, I'm Robert Smith from Planet Money, and this summer we are bringing you the entire history of the world, at least the economics part. It's Planet Money Summer School. Every week, we'll invite in a brilliant professor and play classic episodes about the birth of money, banks, and finance. There will be rogues and revolutionaries and a lot of panics. Summer School, every Wednesday till Labor Day on the Planet Money podcast from NPR.
Last week, I asked what people in the ballroom community love about ballroom. Let's hear what they said.
Hey, Brittany.
Hey, Brittany.
Hey, Brittany.
Hey, Brittany. My name is Antasia, and my favorite thing about Ballroom is the love that we have for our community and the joy that people feel when they come onto that floor. It is so beautiful to see people be in a comfortable space where they feel safe and loved.
My favorite thing about Ballroom is the cultural history that it has. It comes from queer Black culture, and it's so evident and it's so rich, and the way that we build families really expands on that culture, and it drives us to innovate while also honoring the past. And I love that it brings us a sense of identity and a sense of community with each other to be able to share that.
Hi, Brittany. This is Bimbo Moschino 007, also known as Jellicle de la Rose. My favorite thing about Ballroom is how it's a space for specifically Black and brown, queer, and trans folks to not only exist, but be celebrated. I love, personally, the feeling of voguing and how I channel my femininity. I love how it was one of the first places here in the Bay that I've actually found community, chosen family, when I moved here from Chicago.
Antasia, Khadijah, Bimbo Moschino 007, thank you so much for sharing these reflections on your love for Ballroom. It sounds like it adds up to a beautiful community. So thank you so much for calling it. Now, if you want to be heard on an upcoming Hey Brittany, next week we're hearing from a guy who knows how to spread joy. So in honor of that, my question is, what's something you've seen this week that made you smile? I mean, I saw my niece yesterday, and she is just so independent and sassy now in the sweetest way. But if I hadn't seen her, an antique restoration video will always warm my heart. So what makes you smile? Send us a voice memo at IBAM@npr.org. That's IBAM@npr.org. This episode of It's Been a Minute was produced by
Corey Antonio Rose.
This episode was edited by
Jessica Plachek.
Engineering support came from
Nisha Highness.
Our executive producer is
Verilyn Williams.
Our VP of programming is
Yolanda Sanguini.
All right, that's all for this episode of It's Been a Minute from NPR. I'm Brittany Luce. Talk soon.
Waylon, how much do you think it would cost to buy one of those big digital billboards in Times Square to promote our show? The Indicator from Planet Money in big lights.
In this economy?
I mean, you're probably right. But this question is the exact kind of thing that we find answers to on our show. We take one big economic idea, make it understandable, and, even fun.
That's The Indicator from Planet Money and NPR.
This summer on Planet Money, we're bringing you the entire history of the world. At least the economics part. It's Planet Money Summer School. Every week, we'll invite in a brilliant professor and play classic episodes about the birth of money, banks, and finance. There will be rogues and revolutionaries and a lot of panics. Summer School, every Wednesday till Labor Day on the Planet Money podcast from NPR.